Welcome everyone. This is the Velocio webinar, 4 Tactics to Convert Time into Money on Projects, with the theme today being tactic number 1, streamline your estimates to projects process. We will be looking at Microsoft's modern cloud system for the small and medium business market, Dynamics 365 Business Central. I'm your host, Michael Camp. Before we get started, a few guides for you. First, all attendees are on listen-only mode. If you have questions during the presentation, please submit them in the GoToWebinar question window. The presentation will take about 30 to 35 minutes, at which time we will address any questions. This webinar is being recorded, and we will send out a recording tomorrow via email. Our presenter today is Jeff Smith. Jeff is a solution architect with Velocio, and his objective today is to show you how project-driven firms can accelerate their profitability through these 4 tasks, including integrating estimating with project tracking, transitioning from quotes to projects, gaining visibility into resources that are available, and expedite estimating on similar jobs through templates. So he'll take you through that. And on the next image, I want to tee up this presentation before I hand it over to Jeff. This is a series of webinars, and we're on the first one. So you will also see the 3 other webinars that we will do in the coming months on profitability of projects and budgeting, using budgeting and resourcing, on accurate billing with time and expense entry, and on project performance, looking at analytics. So those are the ones that are coming up. And on the next image, I want to focus on why you might be here today and focus on how we might be able to help you with this solution. Whether you're just curious about a new system, this solution that you saw, or the projects, or the topic, or whether you're actively researching a solution and actually evaluating one, whatever your reason, you probably relate to one of these 4 buckets. You might have strained business growth. Your system is holding you back. Perhaps you're on an entry-level system like QuickBooks. You may have a disconnected system. Somehow all the data is spread out and you can't connect the dots. Or maybe you're in what people call spreadsheet hell. You might have reporting limitations. 50% of organizations think creation of reports is too complicated. Or you might have an outdated or legacy system and you need to move to a more modern cloud solution. And so whatever your reason, you probably will relate to one of these buckets, and Jeff is going to show you some ways in project areas how you can solve some of these issues. One of the things we like to ask people who watch our webinars is, what's your next? What are your goals in this webinar? And after you watch it, how could we help you possibly to achieve your next? And we think we are equipped to do that. Velocio has been around for 30 years. We have 320 team members, 4,000 clients, and 96% satisfaction rating. So when it comes time to think about what your next is, we're available to help. And I'll give you some examples on this next image, just to let you know that on the left-hand side, these are the kinds of things that we can help people with as they're evaluating a system, giving you advice with experts, a discovery session, which would lead to recommendations, a cost estimate, and if this is a solution that's advisable, we could provide a personalized demo and go much deeper into what you're going to see today. On the right-hand side, you can see if you make the Microsoft solution your final choice, the ways that we can help you make sure that you have best practices in the solution, that you follow best practices as we configure it, bring value to your business in a much faster way because of the cloud technology, Make sure that the solution is really increasing your productivity, that you have a good return on investment, and training in the solution and ongoing support. So this is an image that kind of shows you where Business Central resides in the Microsoft universe. Jeff is going to be showing you Business Central and its projects capability, but it also integrates with CRM. It has a built-in CRM. It's on the Microsoft Azure cloud, the largest cloud platform in the world, and extremely secure. It connects and integrates with Office 365, Excel, Outlook. It also connects with Power Platform, which includes Power BI. Jeff will be showing you examples of that. That's a dashboarding solution that you'll see, that you'll be able to look at your projects and their performance in dashboards. And finally, industry solutions. And part of the presentation today is to show you advanced project accounting, or Progressus, which is built into Business Central. And Jeff will be actually in that part of the universe, which is one of the industry solutions that you can get with the solution. So it's a whole entire ecosystem of technology that you will get in this system. And then finally, I want to, before I hand it over to Jeff, just show you a 30,000 foot view of the solution itself. These are the buckets or series of modules that come with Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. Jeff will be showing the project management world, advanced project accounting, but also as it ties to financial management, and he'll be showing you reporting and analytics. But for some project-based companies, there might be other functionality that you need, especially if you do make-to-order production, perhaps service management, and those can be covered as well in this solution. So I'm going to hand it over to Jeff now. Let's take a look at the agenda and see where Jeff is going to take us on this presentation. Oh, sorry, there was one other image that I wanted to show you. These are the major modules of the Advanced Project Accounting add-on, and Jeff will be touching on these, and this series of webinars will eventually go through all of these modules. So now we can take a look at the agenda, and Jeff, I'm going to hand it over to you. I'll be back later to handle any questions that people might have, and we'll address those at the end. Jeff, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thanks to all of you for joining us today. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about this exciting application, Business Central, and also to get a chance to showcase just a little bit of a tidbit of Progressus, the Advanced Project Accounting module from Velocio. We are very proud of the solution, and you'll be I think very impressed of how it melts right into Business Central and makes Business Central a more effective and more far-reaching application for your organization. So we're going to talk real quickly about just a little bit of Business Central. We only have a limited amount of time. So really where I want to spend the lion's share of my time is just the idea of estimating and quotes on projects, visibility into resources, so capacity, being able to measure capacity and see what resources are available for project work. We're going to talk a little bit about templates to expedite estimating, the estimating process. And really 2, 3, and 4, as I go through them, are all really going to be melted together. We'll kind of jump back and forth between those. At the end of the presentation, I'm going to turn it back certainly to Michael to talk about fielding your questions if you have any. And just a reminder that we certainly appreciate your questions and would love to be able to answer those for you as we go through this presentation. So with no further ado, I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to exit out of PowerPoint, and we're going to move on to Business Central. So with Business Central, It is a true ERP solution, as Michael just alluded to. What you're going to see here is the application. It is cloud-based, it is role-based, and I am logged into the system as a system administrator. With that, I have access to virtually everything. But I do want to emphasize the fact that it is role-based. And so in a moment, you're going to see that as I change roles into more of a project management role, I will be able to jump right into Business Central, from Business Central into Progressus, and it really just melts together. You won't be able to tell when I'm going from one to the other. So that's an important part of this. It'll be easy for learning and expedite the process of making sure that Progressus provides you with the project functionality that you're looking for. So just real quickly to spend a moment, you can see that Business Central is a very graphical application. It provides you with very quick access to a variety of tasks and metrics and information that you might be interested in. One of the things you're going to take note of is that we have headlines that allow you to have access to certain information that's available so that you can dig into seeing this type of data at your fingertips. Actions, so that I have shortcuts to the things that I do most often, including interfacing with Excel. As was mentioned earlier, Business Central is very much the center of an ecosystem, interfacing with Outlook and Excel and Word as part of your Office 365 environment, as well as Microsoft Flow and Power Platform. As we continue down, I'm just going to spend a moment and I'm going to show you that we have the functionality that you also are familiar with in Excel, which is called conditional formatting. So this allows us to define thresholds and what are our favorable and our unfavorable limits and thresholds within the system, so that when we log in, we can see the areas that are critical, that may be marked in red, versus those that are in green that are really more focused on things that are in a satisfactory level. So with all of that, we also then are going to have several areas that are related to dashboards and graphics. So this is just an example here where you can see business assistance and also Power BI reports. Progressus also provides 13 dashboards that are related to projects, and so that will be part of our discussion. We'll just give you a sneak peek of that today, but down the road we'll also spend more time giving you a better look and a closer look and how that can be effective for your organization. So with all of that in mind, I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to select the gear up at the top right-hand corner of my screen, and I'm going to select my settings. From here, what I can do is I can actually select a different role, and this will allow me to select a project executive role, and then I'll click OK. And so with all of that in mind, what's going to happen is now I'm going to be logged in. I'm still inside of Business Central, but instead of being on a screen that's showing me metrics around inventory and payables and receivables and those types of things, this is a role that is very focused on projects. I am logged in as a project executive, so I do have access to several portions of the Progressus application. And I'm just going to spend a moment just kind of overviewing the navigation. Then we're going to get into the areas very specific to our conversation for today. So as I'm logged in, you're going to notice that I now have options around projects and resources and journals, etc. I want to make sure that you're comfortable that we can define a lot of the settings and so forth that are default for moving forward. First thing I wanted to talk about, just to give you some examples, because we will go into this in a little while, is the idea of resources. When I select resources here, what I'm going to be able to see is a list of the individuals that work within my organization that I can ultimately assign to a project. So in this example, I'm going to select myself, as a matter of fact, Jeff Smith. I'm going to log in to my settings, and you'll notice that I have an employee ID, I have a cost type of labor, I'm a pay type of hourly, and you can see my manager and so forth. And really what's important here is, as I'm defining my project, is defining the unit costs. So my unit cost is $25 per hour. I can assign indirect or overhead rates to it as well, so that ultimately I come up with a unit cost that is appropriate for this particular job. Because really what we're trying to do when we create a project is we're trying to assign and capture the cost as we engage our resources, as we consume inventory, as we have expenses that come about, so that we can ultimately then track our success. And that really gets back into the whole idea of then tracking that against our budget, which is part of what we're going to cover today. The other thing that you'll notice is that I have a unit price. So on a time and materials type of project, I'm going to be able to bill out myself at $75 per hour. My cost is $25 plus 5% for indirect costs. So resources are going to be a very important part of how we end up designing these individual projects. And in a little while, I'm going to show you then, as we start to set up and plan for our projects, how we can actually then get information on the capacity or the availability of the resources that we would then use. All right. So from here, I wanted to talk about a few of the great features that allow us to streamline the process of creating a project in general. So what I can do here is I have the ability to select create, and the system has what's called a project wizard that allows us to very quickly create a project. I'm going to click on that. The system is then going to prompt me for a variety of information. So I'm going to start off with a project number, and the system can either auto assign this or I can assign this myself. Then it's going to ask for a description of the project. So maybe we'll call this a Business Central implementation. Now, as a professional service firm, I may do this type of project all the time, in which case the components of that project are commonplace. So what this allows me to do is it allows me to select either a time and material or a fixed bid type of project, depending on the type of work you do. The next thing is very interesting too, because as you know, part of our discussion was around the idea of creating an estimate and then being able to very easily transition to a project when our client decides that they're ready to move forward. So what I have the ability to do here is select order or quote, and if I select quote, then it will actually be set up as a quote. I won't be able to enter time or things like that against it, but I will be able to then set up my budget. I will be able to set up the costs that I know I'm going to incur. I will be able to set up my billing arrangements and so forth. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to select the customer for which I would like to engage, that has engaged us, and I'll click on that. Now that looks directly into Business Central's customer base. Progresses is fully integrated into the Business Central application from a customer perspective, from a vendor perspective, from an inventory perspective. So all of those different components can all work together to provide us with a very fine project solution. As I go through this in about a minute, I'm going to be able to go all the way through setting up a project. I do have the ability to define the estimated starting date for the project, if I'm providing this client any discount on resources or item or expenses that may exist on the project. Also then I can, Business Central, as Michael had mentioned earlier, does have a CRM component to it. Microsoft also has a more full-blown CRM solution called Dynamics 365 Customer Engagement. But if we wanted to include this project in our pipeline, we certainly could. We can also define the project manager, who's going to be responsible for the project, but we may not know that at the point that we are creating the quotation. There's a couple other important things that are I wanted to make sure that we are able to point out here. So first of all, I can create a task template. And so the reason I mention task templates is because what this allows us to do is it allows us to set up our project using a common set of tasks and cost codes that will be used across this type of project. I also can make this a customer project versus an internal project if I choose as well. So for those of you that are working with projects internally that are not billable to a customer, you'll have the ability to measure those as well. All right. So now what I can do is each of the components is either time and materials or fixed. In my example, what I wanted to show you was a time and materials project, and that's what I'm looking at here. And then this is probably a topic for another day, but Business Central does provide what are called dimensions. So what this means is that I can assign these to particular dimension codes within Business Central that can then affect reporting, not only within project, but across the whole solution. Now at this point, I can select finish. And what's going to happen is the system is going to then prompt me, okay, you said that you were going to use a template. Well, which one are you going to use? And so from here, I had indicated that this was a Business Central implementation, so I may use my template called software implementation. From here, the system says, okay, this particular project, may we copy all of the tasks from the project, or do we need to just pull some of them? And so in my example, I'm going to go ahead and say all tasks. So from here then, what I can do is I can click close, and the system is now created project number 87. So I have a brand new project that has been set up in the system, and I can go in and I can select it from my project list. And here from my project list, you're going to note that I have a project number 87. And within that project number 87, here are all the different task levels that are going to apply. So in a typical implementation of software, we're going to do project planning, we're going to do requirements gathering, we're going to design the solution, we're going to provide training, data migration, testing, and then a go live process. So this is the kind of project that we would do with Progressus or Business Central, or both if that's the project that you're selecting. So along the way then, I'll be able to create estimates and so forth as well. What I'd like to do is also show you a couple other things that streamline this process. First of all, you'll notice that under project and card, this project is set up as a status of a quote. At the point that the client accepts this project, all we have to do is go to open, and the project will then become a full-blown project that I can enter activity against and start to then measure that activity against the budget that I had set. Now, one of the things we didn't really talk about is I'm going to go back to one of my other projects, project number 82, where I actually have set up some budget numbers. And so from here, what you can see is I now have total cost that's assigned here. And this budget becomes my estimate. So keep in mind that when I set up resources, and this happens to be really a labor only type of project, I've not only assigned cost, but I've also assigned a price or an hourly rate. So as I enter time against this particular project, the project is going to accumulate the cost against the budget, and it's also going to allow us to then bill for those items on whatever agreement we have. It could be at the project's completion, it could be after any of the steps during the project. So just keep in mind that that is the case. If I drill into any one of these components, then what you're going to find is that I do have, and I've already entered these, I've entered time for resources into the system. And as I scroll across, you can see that I have 10 hours of Bill Arden's time and 40 hours of my time that have been accumulated based upon my rates and costs will build our budget. Okay, so the idea here is that we have absolutely created a budget. And at this point, if I'm ready to now I've gotten commitment from my customer, I can come in, go to card, and I can just switch this thing over to project or open project, and I can now begin the process of accumulating costs and moving forward. So one other alternative that I have is to, if I have a blank project, say I think my project number 83, you can see here that this one has no cost against it. However, I could, if I chose, I'm going to take one more step here, bear with me. I'm going to go back through the wizard. I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to create PROJ088. I am going to say software implementation. And then I'm going to pick my template, or I don't have to. So let's say that it's going to be time and materials. It's going to be a quote. I'm going to pick my customer. We'll pick our 30,000 School of Fine Art again. We'll go through the settings just like we did before. We'll make it all time and materials. And as we finish, I've created the project. But one thing that's different is I didn't create the task. So now, if I go into this particular project, I'm going to go back to project 88. I can also come into the project, and there are no tasks. If I go into actions, budget, more budget, I can actually copy from another project. So from here, I can go and copy. I can copy the budget as well. So if this is a kind of a boilerplate type of project, I can copy the budget as well as the task. And as I click OK, you'll see that I now have a project with a budget, an estimate, and I can now turn that one into a project by simply going into the project card and making it an open project. Now, one of the other things that we had indicated that we were going to cover, and this will be the last thing I talk about today, is the whole idea of being able to manage our resources. So one of the important reports that are available inside of the Progressus product is resource reports. And we also have a resource planning matrix. So the reason I wanted to show you this is what happens is that as we enter our quotations and I turn them into orders or projects, my time is going to be that I've estimated for those particular resources will be then managed against capacity. So then I've got 10 hours on a project and I see that that 10 hours is here. I understand then as I'm managing my project that Bill has 10 more hours because Bill works on projects 20 hours a week. We can do this for all of our individuals, and we can set up what their capacity is, and then as we enter quotations and projects, then their time will be managed against that. So anyway, with that in mind, the idea is that we wanted to make sure that you're really comfortable of how Progressus will help you not only create your estimate, but also then be able to create, not only be able to create your estimate, but very easily turn it into a project. One thing that I did not cover with you that I will just for a second, I did miss one thing, is with these individual projects, I also have the capability of, when it's in quote mode, I can come into actions and budget, and I can actually create a quote out of the box. So this way, and you do have the options. There's a summary, a detail, and there's a total of 3 different options on what that quotation could look like. So you can design the quotation to look the way you need, and then obviously go from there. So hopefully what you've seen today is how Progressus combined with Business Central can provide you an easy and direct way to connect your proposals, your quotations to your projects in a very short order. With that in mind, I'm going to turn it back over to Michael to field any questions that we may have and to talk about any next steps that may come up.
Thank you, Jeff. I see a couple questions here we'll address, and it's not too late for those who want to ask a question. The question window is still open. We encourage you to go ahead and submit a question. One question, Jeff, is how many estimates can you have in the system at one time?
There's really no limit. So the application will allow you to have as few or as many as you need. And we do have clients of varying sizes that we work with varying levels of volume and activity with their clients. So there should be absolutely no limitation in regards to how many estimates or projects, for that matter, that you can have in the system.
Good. Okay. The other question is, can I add or remove tasks in a project after creating the project?
The answer to that is yes, and I think that's an important question. I'm glad that that was asked because you notice that we used a template. It copied the task into the new project, but then we may end up deciding that really there are certain tasks in the project that we no longer need, or after we've created the project, there may be some additional tasks that need to be added to it. And so what Business Central with Progressus is going to allow you to do is to modify the project, even if you've created it with a template after it's been put in place. So the answer is yes, we can make those adjustments as necessary.
Right. Okay. Good. Another question is, were those Dynamics 365 Business Central screens that you were showing, or Dynamics 65 with Progressus added?
So, well, a little bit of both, because in that project area, so as I'm logged in as a project executive, I have the ability to go to a customer record, to inventory. I have, and Business Central on its own has resource capabilities. So all of that really is just a out-of-the-box Business Central function, but it's meshed in with a variety of additional features and functionality and screens that are created with the usage of Progressus. So the nice thing about the applications that are available for Business Central is they really melt right into the interface and have the same look and feel as the product as it is as bare boned.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you don't really know when you're in another solution. It's all integrated very tightly, so that makes it really nice. I think there's one more question. What is the process if you were migrating from QuickBooks to Business Central? What kinds of things would be in the process?
So there is a migration process from QuickBooks. So obviously on the project side, there's really not going to be much of a migration capability. But from the accounting perspective, we're going to be able to migrate a variety of the records that exist inside your system, such as your vendors, your customers. If you maintain inventory, we'll be able to bring that across. We'll be able to bring in OpenAP, OpenAR, We'll be able to bring in some general ledger net change activity as well. So that's all part of a package that's been created by Microsoft to allow us to make that move. Once you've made the migration, then you can configure the Progressus solution if that is going to play into your move forward activity.
Okay, that's it for the questions today. Just a reminder that this is a series of webinars, and the next webinar for next month will be entitled Maximize Profitability with Project Budgeting and Resourcing. So we'll get into a little bit more detail about budgeting, resourcing, and how that can be used to ensure healthy profitability on your projects. So that's coming up. You'll get an invitation, and if you came in late, or if you have others that need to hear this, we will be sending a recording of this webinar tomorrow via email. So we want to thank everyone for attending. And just a reminder above, if you want to engage with Velocio, learn more about the solution, and you're ready to engage and not wait for another webinar, we will provide you with all those kinds of services, advice, a discovery session, recommendations, a cost estimate, and even dive deeper into the solution when we figure out what your requirements are so that you can have a personalized presentation. Finally, I want to encourage you to contact us if you have any other questions. Let me just check the question thing in case something else came up. No other questions, but if you have follow-up questions after a while, we encourage you to contact us. There are people standing by to help you, and there is a URL. Just paste that URL or copy that URL into your browser, and you'll get a lot more resources about Progressus, which is the advanced project accounting capability that's built in to Business Central. So with that, we will end the webinar, and thanks again for attending, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.